Hey guys, welcome back to Cheat Sheet Pros, man. Let's build some lineups for the weekend. Hey guys, I'm glad it's Friday. I'm getting ready to build some lineups for the weekend. It was a long week at work, and so I want to take a look at a couple things. A lot of people ask me about stacking, so I'm going to give you an example of kind of how I build lineups and use a stack. Now, you're probably familiar by now. A stack is going to be a team QB, at least one, sometimes two pass catchers. I prefer two, and running it back with one on the other side. So let's go ahead and start there. So one of the issues I had with the sheet is I was always manually calculating, well, how much is this stack? How much is this stack? So what I'm debating doing is I added this in here a few minutes ago, and you can see right here, and I'm debating keeping this in here because I really like it. And so this is going to show you the cost of the two most common stacks. Now, it's going to be color-coded. Red is really expensive. Orange is just kind of like middle, average. And then green is going to be really cheap, and that's kind of what we want to target to have a lot of money left over with our stacks. So, for example, you can see here, Russell Wilson, his stack's going to be $7,400 per person. That is really high. It's going to be hard to fit that in a lineup. And you can see here, the top one is going to be the quarterback with the wide receiver 1, the wide receiver 2, and the opponent wide receiver 1. And then this is going to be the same thing, but instead of the wide receiver 2, it goes to the tight end. So not a lot of teams have solid tight ends, but that's another way to knock the stack cost down. So for example, this is going to be Russell Wilson. It's going to be Lockett. It's going to be Metcalf. And then Diggs on the other side is $7,400 per person. That is a lot. They're all studs. They're expensive. Now you can see when you flip down through here, it's all going to change. Now we got some green, we got some orange, and then, you know, you keep going down and it's going to flip you through the games. And so I can quickly go through here and determine, you know, what games, if I'm wanting to stack something cheap, I can come in here and I can look for these greens, and that's going to give me something to stack. And once I find a cheap stack, I can start looking at the other aspects of the game, like Vegas points projected, what our algo has it at, and go from there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and skip forward. I'm going to show you the one that I like this week for GPP, and that's going to be this Denver-Atlanta game. The reason is, well, first thing I do is I look over here at the stack cost. Now, what I really like that just jumped out at me is this stack up here with Denver. So I want to look at Vegas and see what it says. So Vegas said it opened at 47.5. It moved at 50.5. So it's moved up 3 points. 95% of the money is on the over. So the general public is expecting a lot of points. So then I'm going to look at our custom model and see we have 49.7, so almost 50 points. So we agree there's going to be a lot of points in this game. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at the defenses. So Denver has the number 9 defense, and then Atlanta has the 22nd defense. Now, the one thing that jumps out is the difference between these two. So Atlanta has a decent rush defense, but pass defense, they're 29th. So that's going to be good for Denver. Now, Denver don't look too great on offense, but Drew Lock has had his moments, and he gets Tim Patrick back this week. So we're going to look at stacking Denver against the 29 rated pass defense in a game that's projected at around 50 points. So those are all pluses for this stack. Now, the one thing that jumped out is at $5,500 per person, that is very inexpensive for a stack. So you're looking at Drew Lock at only $5,200 on DK, and then you can stack Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick, or you could do Jeudy and I like Fant. So here, this is going to be doing Jeudy, Patrick, and then running it back with Julio on the other side. And Julio should get a lot of work this week. Calvin Ridley, I don't think he plays. He's questionable, but he's banged up pretty good. And so you can run it back with Julio. That's your for sure. And then if you want to do two, I like doing Julio and Gage. So that's what we're going to take a look at. So now the one thing that jumps out over here is this is our ranks versus receivers. Now you see this Atlanta, they're the right side. So versus the tight end, they are 30th. They give up a ton of points to the tight end. Well, Drew Lock likes throwing to Noah Fant. He's 4,600. He's a little bit more than what I want to spend. But when I'm getting these guys at less than 5K, I don't mind it. And then if you really want to get crazy, you can go down here and go with a Hamler or Deshaun Hamilton, who had a big week last week, and they're 3,400. So none of these receivers are that expensive, and neither is Fant. So you can stack this up, and I think Mahomes is like 8K this week, so you're getting almost 3K less for Drew Lock. Now, given he's probably going to give you 10, 15, maybe 20 points, but if you can fill in the holes, that's great for GPP. So I come down here and I want to see what Drew Lock has done this year. Now, the last 2 weeks are really what I want to look at. So he's put up 15 and 20 DK points, so 3X and 4X. So that's decent for us. It's nothing great, but, you know, it's there. So that's the first stack I'm going to look at and running back with Atlanta. So let me show you how this looks on the DK. Okay, so once you go in here and you go to create a lineup, so the first thing I do is I kind of create lineups early in the week and then I save them. So I'm going to go over here up top. Let me make sure this is on my screen. Okay, we'll put it right in the middle. And over here we got the Denver-Atlanta game. I'm going to click down here on depth chart because I already know the stack I want to do. I want to do Drew Lock, and then let's say we do Judy, and let's do Fant, and then we're going to run it back on the other side with Julio. And we're going to assume Calvin Ridley's probably not going to go or he'll be limited. And we're going to take Russell Gage at 4,500. Now, if this game becomes a shootout and they score 60, 65, 70 points, that's exactly what you want is both teams going down the field. And you can see over here, they both play at a good pace. Denver's 13th and Atlanta's 4th. So pace is good. This is a game that could be a sneaky stack for us. So we're sitting here. Now, once I get my stack put in, the next thing I want to do is I want to know how much money's left over, but I need to pick out my defense. So I come over here to defense, I scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I find the cheapest punt defense that I can live with, and I put that in, and then I build the rest of my lineup. Once I build the rest of my lineup, if I have money left over, I come back and readdress the defense. So for this week, we scroll down here to the bottom. Cowboys versus Pitt, that's a 0. There's 0 chance of success there. Panthers versus KC. I live in KC. I'm not going against them. Lions at Minnesota. I love Dalvin Cook this week. Detroit can't stop the run, so don't really like that one. Now, this one's interesting. So Minnesota at Detroit. Now, Stafford, he's on the COVID reserve list. He might not play this week. He might play, but if he doesn't play, that would be a pretty good one. If not, I don't mind it as a punt. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in here at 2,400. So we have our stack. We've picked our cheap punt defense that we can live with. Now we're going to come up here and see how much money we have left. We've got 71.33. That is fantastic, and we got to fill 3 spots. Now your running backs, don't worry about ownership. A lot of the GPP winning and Millie Maker lineups will have chalk running backs. It's the crazy wide receivers and stacks that usually end up winning them. Now for this week, now this is what's fun. So what I'm saying is if you're doing like a 20, excuse me, woo! If you're doing a 20 max contest, do this lineup 5 times and then mix and match each of these guys. If you get 2 running backs you love, run it another 5 times and mix out the flex. So what you want to do is get this stack to go deep, and then you're going to have several little key pieces that could move you up deeper. So for example, I love Dalvin Cook this week. Henry, I'm going to go ahead and pass up against Chicago. He could be decent. Robinson, I don't mind against Houston, but I worry about the QB Luton, whatever they're putting in there. And then I love Connor and I love Edmonds. So let's just pick one of these. Let's say we go with Edmonds. All right, so we got Dalvin Cook and Edmonds. We got 2 solid running backs that we feel good with. We have our stack. Now in our flex, we have 6,400. So you can take this lineup and you can duplicate it, say 5 times, and pick 5 guys that are 6,400 and below and plug into each one of these and run this combo. So like if I'm going to do a 20 max and I like this stack to take a real shot at the GPP, I typically do 4 or 5 different stacks, but maybe you take this stack and you run it 3 times and mix out the flex and then flip up your running backs, run it 3 more times. So like for here, I do one with Robbie Anderson. Don't really care about Gurley. Do one with CEH. Do one with Justin Jefferson. These guys that got big upside. Corey Davis has been doing well. Waller could have a big game. Antonio Gibson set up for a big game. Montgomery, he has no ceiling. Claypool, he's got the ability for a big game. And then we come down here, DJ Moore or Cooks. So you could run this lineup once with each of those guys in the flex and give you a wide variety of shots. And then once you do that, you can come back up here and say, okay, for GPPs. Maybe you want to mix it up and say, what if you have everything riding on Dalvin and he gets hurt first play of the game and rolls his ankle and then he's out, all those lineups are sunk. So say you come down here and then I like taking Connor and Edmonds, my next two guys I like. Now I have $7,700 to spend in this one flex spot. So look at the different guys I could put in here. I could do one with Diggs. I could pivot my defense down and even get to Metcalf. I could do one with Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, James Robinson, Allen Robinson, Lockett, Fuller, Thielen. I mean, there's a lot of studs you could fit in there. And then you could flip it up here and say, you know, maybe you want to go a little lower. Say you're going to go Connor. And then, oh, I don't have a lot of low running backs I like this week. Let's just say Gibson at 58. Now you've got 8,700 you can play with in this flex. You can put anybody in there from McCaffrey, Hopkins, Cook, Henry, Metcalf. So find out the running backs that you really like that are set up for success, and that's kind of what I'm looking for, and then duplicate this lineup. That's a fun way to build because then you've only got to watch your ticker, or if it's on TV, the game, and if you see this stack is 17 to 14 at halftime, you're probably in a pretty good spot. And then you can also mix and match. If you've got enough money left over, go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to kick Gage out here, and I'm going to run the Lock, Judy, Fant stack with Julio, and then, you know, use some of that money, split it up, and now you can put another stud in here at wide receiver. Now, when I pick out my running backs, the other thing that we talked about, I'm just going to hit on it real quick, is this trenches down here. Now, one of the things, let me find Arizona, because that was the one I was getting the most questions on in the chat. Arizona and who are they playing? Was it Miami? All those letters are so small they're hard to see. All right, here we go. Arizona, Miami. So I really like Edmonds this week. I wavered him the week prior in a lot of my season-long leagues because I did. Well, Drake just sucks this year, with the exception of the one game over here. So now we come down here and look. So this is the reason I like Edmonds. So this is Arizona. So this is the team that's listed up top. And then over here, this is how the opponent does. Now, previously, we would come up here and say, okay, Miami's giving up 125 rush yards a game. Hopefully, you can see that up here. And then rush defense, they're horrible. They're 32nd. Okay, that doesn't really tell us a lot. And what I found is that would give me a bunch of running backs, but some of them would only end up with 60 yards. Some of them would end up with 70, and then some would go bonkers like Dalvin last week and bust off a $150 and 5 TDs. So what I noticed is FTN and Football Outsiders and all these other people were talking about the different parts of the run. So whether they're just going up against the D-line, then the secondary one, which is the 5 to 10 yard runs, and then 10+ yard runs, and then power runs, which are punching it in from the goal line or getting a first down with 1 or 2 yards to go on a third or third or fourth down. So I said, okay, I can do that. So I broke these out, and these are actually a lot of fun. So you're going to see the offensive O-line versus the D-line, what the offense does, 5 to 10 yard runs versus what the defense is allowing, and 10+ yard runs. Now, I wish I had it saved, but Dalvin Cook last week, if you saw that video, when I put him on here, like I had 0 Dalvin Cook, I added this to the cheat sheet, and I went through, and Dalvin Cook like screamed off the page. So he was in, I'd say 90-95% of all my lineups. I had him in there, and he went bonkers. And so that was a good day. But here, I don't worry too much about this 21st O-line and then 5 to 10 yard runs. I know a lot of this is Drake, and he wasn't doing very well, so he pulled these numbers down. I know Edmonds is a much better back in my opinion, so I'm going to focus on these numbers over here. So as far as power runs, punching it in, so if Arizona gets down around the goal line, they're number 4 in power runs, and then Miami is giving up the most. So they're 32nd in allowing the power run. So this would tell me that Chase Edmonds, if they get the ball down there around the 1, as long as he doesn't throw it to Hopkins, if they run it, he's going to be able to punch it in, unlike David Montgomery. And then the original runs, they're 30th on the D-line. So Miami has a great pass defense, which you can see up here. They're number 3 in pass defense, and this is why I cannot figure out why the Rams quit running the ball. They were averaging 6-7 yards a carry last week, and then all of a sudden they said, hey, Goff, let's throw the ball, and he threw a pick, and then he threw another pick, and then they just end up getting blown out. They should have kept the ball on the ground and kept running. So with a strong pass defense like this, they should be able to at least limit Hopkins from not exploding. But then with a terrible rush defense, Arizona should want to run the ball. And I'm not worried about Eno Benjamin. Drake's already out, so Chase Edmonds should get the bulk of these at 6,800. So you've got 30th on the D-line, 29th in allowing 5 to 10 yard runs. So that tells me he's going to have 5 or 6 runs break off in that 5 to 10 range. Well, that's 50, 60, 70 yards right there. So I'm hoping he can hit the hundo and get a score. And then 10-plus yard runs, they're kind of middle of the road, about 18th. So that's good for Chase Edmonds. And then Connor, let's look at that one real quick, and then I'll cut this video down. Pitt and the College Dallas. All right, so we come down here to Pitt. So we're going to look at Dallas. So Dallas rush defense, 29th. They've got the 29th D-line. They're 27th in allowing runs of 5 to 10 yards. They're 21st in allowing runs of 10-plus yards. And they're 26th at giving up basically the power run. Now, Pittsburgh, they're kind of middle of the road, but Connor, he gets a big workload. And, my God, they're going to be up 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game. So this entire second half, he should just be running the clock. I have zero faith in Dallas playing a QB3 and Zeke being banged up going up against this Pitt defense that's number 2 overall, number 2 rushing, number 6 passing. So Connor's another one that I like in the 6 range. And then I'll show you what Dalvin looks like. He's going to be pretty popular this week. A lot of people are going to be on him, especially at home. And so you've got Dalvin going up against Detroit. So you got the 21st rush defense versus the number 3 rushing offense. So that bodes well for him. And then you come down here, and Minnesota's got the 4th O-line versus the 24th D-line. They're 2nd in runs of 5 to 10 yards versus Detroit's 21st in allowing them. And then 9-17, 19-28. So should be another big week for Dalvin. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm looking and what I'm building and how I do my stacks. Once I get that stack done, I'll typically, click down these depth charts and go along here and try to find another one. Another easy way to do it is just come over here to QBs and scroll down and look for QBs in that 5, 55, 6, maybe 65 range. And when you're doing that and you're clicking down here, Roth is one that kind of jumps out at me that I like. So you put Roth up here, then you're going to say, okay, let me find Pitt. We're going to click this depth chart. We're going to take 2 of our receivers. I don't like Juju. I like Claypool better. And then Deontay, he's always hurt, but he's $1,200 less, so let's say we go with him. And so then that gives me kind of a little mini stack. I'm not going to run that one back with anyone from Dallas because I don't think they score. But that at least gives you one little stack to kind of go with. And you can do that with other stacks. But just make sure you come back here, look at the cheat, see what Vegas says. Is this total going up? Is it going down? What's our custom model have? And what's the defense look like? If you want to get real tricky with your stacks, you can come over here and say, okay, how are they versus wide receiver 1s versus 2 versus 3, which is basically the slot guy, and how are they versus tight ends? So if you're looking at this, you could say Detroit, all right, I want the wide receiver 1 and I want the tight end because those are the 2 worst ranks. Anyways, that's the video I got for general lineup building, so make sure you stack Drew Lock this week, cross your fingers, and let's have some fun.